Good evening, and welcome to the council meeting for Monday, November the 4th, 2024. Please rise for the playing of the national anthem and a moment of reflection. And if we could ask all those in attendance with a hat on to please remove.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command.
Car ton bras s'est porté l'épée, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits.
God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Please be seated. At this time, I'll look to Councillor Lindell to read the land acknowledgement.
The land on which Council meets today is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe peoples, many of whom continue to live and work here today. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is within the land protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, this gathering place is home to many Indigenous peoples made up of the First Nation, Inuit, and Metis. The Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement should remind us of our responsibility to ensure the territories on which we live and work, is never emptied, and that we take care of the land and its inhabitants in a way that ensures its future sustainability.
Thank you, Councillor Lindell. We will start with our mayor's report today. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. We do have an exciting presentation to make this evening, but before that, I do want to try and get through the mayor's report. I will start off by just very briefly discussing some of the questions that have come into my office over the last couple of days with respect to my signature on a letter to the province regarding the use of the notwithstanding clause and other areas of provincial jurisdiction. I'm going to start off by saying that I'm on record as saying we should not tear down encampments if we have nowhere for them to go. That hasn't changed. I've been very consistent on this over the last several years, and I'm honestly amazed that some people think that it has changed. I've repeated it over and over again. I will say, though, with respect to the letter, I'm going to lay out the main points and my reasoning for why I am supporting them. The first part of the letter read, we request that your government consider the following measures and where necessary use the notwithstanding clause to ensure these measures are implemented in a timely and effective way. The provincial government is requested to become an intervener on any court case that restricts the ability of municipalities to regulate and prohibit encampments, advocating for the principle endorsed by the U.S. Supreme Court in the city of Grant Pass, Oregon, that courts should not be dictating homelessness policy. So my reasoning is fairly simple. The current situation is absolutely untenable. The court rulings in Ontario, both in Waterloo and in Kingston, have made it clear that the court believes municipalities can't regulate where and when encampments can happen. I agree with the idea that we shouldn't tear down encampments if we don't have shelter to offer, but we should be able to have some power in regulating where and when they are set up. In St. Catharines, this has led to encampments on public land, up against people's property, or adjacent to schools. Whether anyone likes this fact or not, the reality is that encampments tend to have a much higher incident rate of drug use, of human trafficking, possession of weapons, and other illegal activity. We need to be able to prohibit encampments in areas of sensitive use. Further to this, I will be asking staff to examine Guelph's public space use bylaw to see if something like that can be helpful to what we're trying to do. It was written to try and provide maximum permissiveness while keeping the whole community's interests in mind. The second point of the letter read that the provincial government is requested to strengthen the existing system of mandatory community-based and residential mental health care and to expand service to treat those who have severe and debilitating addictions. Many people have made the point that we need to be addressing the root causes, and that's what the purpose of this clause in the letter states. We all know that we need better mental health care, and almost every professional I know has made that point to me during the discussion around homelessness, mental health, and the opioids. We're not asking for anything new here. We're asking for the system to be strengthened and expanded to care for individuals with serious addictions. The third point was that the provincial government is requested to implement a drug and diversion court system throughout the entire province and ensure the necessary resources to allow a meaningful focus on rehabilitation as opposed to incarceration. This addresses the need for options other than prison for people with addiction issues who wind up in situations that would otherwise lead to imprisonment. This seems like a better way to deal with the underlying issues than throwing people in jail, and it has worked in other places. Something along these lines is what Portugal does. The fourth point was that the provincial government is requested to amend the Trespass to Property Act to include a separate provision for repetitive acts of trespass, the penalty for which should include a period of incarceration, and to further permit a police officer to arrest a person who commits repetitive acts of trespass after having been directed by the police officer not to engage in such activity. But these amendments should also include an option for referral to a diversion court for charges of repetitive trespass. This is an ongoing problem in our community, and we're asking for help to deal with it. And again, this includes an ask for being able to use diversion courts as opposed to simply locking people up. Finally, the provincial government is requested to enact legislation providing clear guidance regarding the open and public use of drugs being prohibited in the same manner as the open consumption of alcohol. To be very blunt, this is the number one thing that I am asked by residents in our community, and I'm asked for. They don't understand why open drug use is tolerated when open alcohol use would be punished. We have regular instances of open drug use occurring in front of downtown schools. It's not acceptable, and it has to be dealt with. I will close with this on this topic. The idea that this is criminalizing homelessness is simply wrong. The inflammatory rhetoric that's being used is absolutely unhelpful, and it's simply designed to get people angry about the issue. It does nothing to try and help the people that are involved. And I will happily answer any questions that council may have, either here or later on. And to the community, I will say simply that if you have questions about what I've stated, you can reach out, mayor@stcatharines.ca, and I will happily explain and provide any reasoning that you are concerned about. Over the last 2 weeks, I had the opportunity to travel with the Lincoln and Welland Regimental Association on a tour of battlefields in Normandy, Belgium, and the Netherlands. I will have more to say about this on Remembrance Day, but I wanted to express to all of you how proud I was of the level of commemoration our European friends show towards the war efforts of Canadians and the rest of the Allies, and specifically the level of remembrance shown by the people of Bergen-op-Zoom in the Netherlands towards the Lincoln and Welland Regiment. Bergen-op-Zoom was liberated by the South Alberta Regiment and the Lincoln and Welland Regiment on October 27th of 1944. I was in attendance last weekend on the 80th anniversary, and the degree of reverence for our local regiment was something I had to see to understand. I had the pleasure of meeting with Mayor Mulder of Bergen-op-Zoom, and we had an excellent discussion on the common issues we both face, as well as how we can look at ways to deepen the relationship between our cities. We have a number of ideas to look at, and I'm excited at the prospect of more to come. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to bring greetings at the opening ceremony of the Canadian Mixed Curling Championships, which are being hosted at the St. Catharines Golf and Country Club. I want to wish all the teams the best of luck this week and enjoy your time spent exploring all that St. Catharines has to offer. Last night, I, along with Councillors McPherson and Stevens, celebrated the City Arts Awards at the First Ontario Performing Arts Centre. This year, there were 42 nominees in 5 categories, and I want to thank all the nominees for their dedication and their creative expression that helps to build our vibrant cultural landscape that connects and uplifts the whole community. I did want to highlight an email we received from Cole Lewis, who is the winner of the Established Artists Award, as I believe it's a powerful testament to the impact of the city's long-standing support for the arts. Thank you for this award. It was a real gift to celebrate my award with both good humor and sincere pride, alongside my dear longtime friend and artistic collaborator, Deanna Jones, who also won for making a difference. Beyond being an individual honor, my award feels like a recognition for Suitcase and Point Theatre as well. Suitcase and Point started as a silly but very serious idea in the early 2000s, and none of us could have foreseen the artistic growth we'd each experience or the impact Suitcase and Point would have on the city. It's important to acknowledge that such artistic growth and impact wouldn't be possible without the ongoing support of the city and programs like SKIP. St. Catharines is my home, and I have always loudly professed how much I love this city. The curves of St. Paul Street remind me of the water that once flowed and the extensive trail network that Indigenous peoples nurtured long before I arrived here. The now vacant land at 80 Geneva reminds me of the first meeting in which Suitcase and Point was born. Russell Avenue Community Center is where my daughter first learned to walk, and Kiwanis Aquatic Center is where she first learned to swim. St. Catharines has taught me to honor those who came before me and made my path possible. St. Catharines has fostered my artistry, sustained my family, and cultivated a strong, supportive community around the arts. I'm grateful to call St. Catharines my home. I know it is not easy to administer awards and a large event connected to them. I want to thank all those who took the time to both invest in and honor arts in St. Catharines. I want to thank the jury who read every nomination package and selected a winner. Not an easy task given the sheer number of deserving talent in our city. I also want to thank those who planned the event, including PAC for hosting the event, Mayor Matt Cisco for taking the time to attend, those who worked for the city and oversaw the organization of the ceremony, a massive undertaking and huge success, the elder who shared such beautiful knowledge and absolutely is an artist, the caterers who kept our bellies nourished, and Tim Dennis who hosted with humor, grace, and care. All to write, thank you for the Established Artist Award. I was honored to sit alongside many other nominees who are equally, if not more, deserving. It's funny to receive an award called Established when I feel like I'm still reaching so hard for my artistry, but I do utterly feel established in my love for this city and wholeheartedly plan to be of service through my art to my community. And I want to say thank you to Cole for sharing those words and for all your contributions to the art scene here in St. Catharines. So a number of upcoming events, which I will finish with. The first is banner raising at the Niagara Ice Dogs game on November 8th, this Friday. Prior to the start of the game, we will honor two of the city's greatest hockey players of all time in Marcel Dion and Brian Cullen with a banner raising ceremony at the Meridian Center. Dion, who played 3 seasons with the St. Catharines Blackhawks from 1968 to 1971, is still the city's all-time regular season and playoff points record holder with 507. Marcel Dion is also 6th on the NHL's all-time scoring list with 1,771 career points and was elected into the Hockey Hall of Fame in 1992. Brian Cullen played with the St. Catharines Teepees from 1951 until 1954, and in his first season, he was the league's top rookie. In 1954, he was the captain of the team that won the Memorial Cup. During that season, he scored 68 goals and 93 assists, setting a league record of 161 points. No St. Catharines junior player has ever broken Cullen's points record that season. Both players will have banners raised in their names Friday night before the Niagara Ice Dogs game as they take on the Sarnia Sting in a 7 p.m. puck drop. Tickets for the game can still be purchased for the game visiting niagaricedogs.net. I want to thank the Royal Canadian Legion Port Dalhousie Branch 350 for hosting the first of the Remembrance Day ceremonies to take place in the city over the next week. And I want to thank Councillors Williamson and Phillips and Dodge, and am I forgetting anybody? Nope, okay, good. The ceremony took place yesterday morning, and it gave us the opportunity to pay tribute to the fallen, members of our community who made the ultimate sacrifice for their country. On November 11th, there are 2 ceremonies that the public can attend. The Branch 24 Legion Remembrance Day ceremony, 10 a.m. beginning here at City Hall with the parade and service to Memorial Park. Although I will warn everybody in attendance, sometimes the Sergeant Major likes to get going early because he decides it's time to get going early. So I would suggest showing up about 15 minutes before 10, just in case. And Branch 138 Legion Remembrance Day ceremony, 10:30 a.m. beginning at 2 Chestnut Street East with parade and service to the Cenotaph in Meriton. And I do have one sports team to congratulate before I get on to our special presentation today. I do want to give a shout out, and if anybody's wondering, this is why Councillor Harris has squeezed himself into a leather jacket from his high school days, which makes him look like a sausage in a casing that is too small. Congratulations to the Sir Winston Churchill Bulldogs, who did defeat A.N. Meyer in the Zone 3 football championship, senior football championship last week. I may have gotten myself into some trouble with some joking remarks about A.N. Meyer on social media, but congrats to both teams. They may have to face each other again in the Sausa Playdowns, but an excellent win by Sir Winston, and very proud of them for representing the city so well. And with that, I will move down to the microphone because we have a special presentation tonight. And I will come back, councillors, I promise I will let you add. So, I get to do something that we haven't done, I don't think, since pre-COVID. And this was something that I remarked on a couple of, I guess, months ago now. We are very excited tonight to welcome the players, the coaches, and the families of the St. Catharines Cobras 8U baseball team to council chambers to celebrate the team's achievements during the 2024 season. Now, this is something we have done in the past, but like I said, since COVID, we haven't really had the opportunity to do this. And so I'm excited that this gets to be the first team that we're bringing in to honor. Overall, this team went 37-11, with only 4 of the losses coming against other 8U teams, and the other 7 losses were against 9U teams. That in itself is impressive. The Cobras were runners-up in a tournament in Stratford and then were crowned champions in tournaments in Niagara Falls, St. Catharines, and ultimately went on to win the 8U Single A Ontario Baseball Association Championship. So before I go any farther, a round of applause for winning that championship. During the Provincial Championship, the team went 6-1, outscoring their opponents 87-28 on the way to the title. The OBA Championship is the first title for any age group for the St. Catharines Minor Baseball Association since 2015, and the 15th overall in the history of St. Catharines Minor Baseball. So I want to provide a heartfelt congratulations to the 8Us on their season. I want to thank you for representing the city of St. Catharines so well on the diamond. I'm going to tell you right now, those green hats are awesome. And as a baseball hat aficionado, maybe I'm going to have to buy one of those off of eBay someday when it becomes a piece of memorabilia. But at this time, I would ask if the players could come on up to the gate right here. We're going to bring you up. And parents, if you want to get a photo, each player is going to come up individually. I'm going to give them a certificate, and then we will shake their hand. So the first player I'm calling up is Roland Hebert. Move a little bit farther over. All right. So next one is Sam Livingston. Round of applause. Good. All right. Sam, right over here. Next we have Eric Muhlenbeck. Sawyer Hawkins. Toby Gramowski. Noah Foley Sider. Nash Scapolatti. Landon Sider. Nash Bymont. Ivan Kerr. Mason Smith. Luke Hunter. And now for our coaches. I'm going to start with Matt Kerr. Jamie Smith. Bill Livingston. And head coach Stephen Hawkins. Now, before anybody runs off, Steve, I'm going to ask you for a few words if you want to bring them.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Let's go for it. So thank you for having us tonight. Very much appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedules to honor these wonderful children and the accomplishments that they had this season. I do want to take this moment, though, to say that despite the accomplishments this season, it does feel, though, as though at moments the city's working against us a little bit in terms of the sports fields and the access that we have to them. And so I wouldn't be a baseball coach if I didn't rattle off some stats to you. And so I did pull from the sports fields strategy draft that you have on the website at the moment. And some of those numbers were stark, right? So in St. Catharines, we have an average population of 5,800 people per ball diamond, and the regional average is 2,300. These kids, we want to come up here and celebrate these things more often, and we'd love to be back next year to celebrate back-to-back championships, but we need your support and your help in improving the facilities that we do have for this group. The facilities that we do have in the region, a lot of our competitors, Niagara Falls, Welland, those groups have fields that have washrooms, that have lighting, that have better maintenance, and some of those things are lacking in our fair city. So again, I do appreciate, I know this is a celebration, I don't want to be too much of a Debbie Downer, but we do need your support to be able to achieve things like this. So again, thank you very much for your time, and thank you for celebrating what a wonderful season we've had. We would love to have more kids be able to have the memories that this group has given us this season. So thank you very much.
So, Steve, I will say I appreciate everything you just said. That's part of the reason why we're going through the sports field strategy right now. And that's, to your point, exactly what we should be doing is building those rec facilities. And not that I want to toot the budget that I'm going to be bringing forward on Wednesday, but we are putting money into baseball this budget around. And as I have stated to our CRCS director, my goal is that this creates a renaissance in spending on baseball diamonds across the city and is a major part of our rec facilities master plan, which is what the sports field strategy is going to inform. So your words are not falling on deaf ears. And to be frank, I'm really glad we had you here tonight so that when I present my budget on Wednesday, we get the positive buy-in. So thanks for that. Well done. I really wish we would have planned this out a little bit better. Anyways, with that, we're going to do a photo. Before we go any farther, though, I do want to say to the coaches and to the parents, congratulations to the parents. They're here because you get them to practice. You throw the ball around with them in the backyard. You work on hitting with them. You do all the things. As a guy who played baseball as a little kid, a lot of little league, and then who tried to convince his kids to get into it, and they just refused. But I wanted it so badly for them, and they didn't want it nearly as much. I know the steps that parents have to take and coaches as well. So I just want to say thank you, not just to the boys, although well done everybody on this accomplishment, but to the coaches as well. And with that, I will lower this if we can get a team photo, and then we'll get on. Okay, so I'm being angrily told that Simcoe also won, I'm assuming, the Tier 2 championship?
Tier 2 against Thorold, yeah, the big blow win.
Oh, fantastic. I shouldn't, yeah. My youngest son goes to Thorold, so I actually feel pretty bad about that, but okay. Blowout wins aren't the best. Close wins and losses, those are the ones we look for. But congratulations to Governor Simcoe as well. I appreciate, I will just say, like I kind of said it down there, but I will expand. Thank you to everybody who takes the time out to coach, whether they're teachers, whether they're not. You know, it's so much time out of your day, and I'm sure many of us around the Horseshoe have been involved with youth sports, but not just youth sports. You know, the arts for the youth as well, you know, and running programs for kids. It's a lot of time, and it's that dedication that is absolutely necessary, because every once in a while, you get to be a part of this, and you get to see kids with the smiles on their face because they've gone off and they've accomplished something major. And in this case, it's a baseball championship, but maybe elsewhere it's a theater production, you know, or it's an exhibition, or it's a hockey championship, and it's fantastic. But I'll give my shout out to the coaches out there, because they do a lot of work and they don't always get recognized. All right, with that, we will move on. Well, wait a minute. I did say I would let counselors jump in if they had things they wanted to add. So, counselors, we have Counselor Lindell and then Counselor Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to mention that Councillor Stevens and I were able to take a couple of ringers, Alicia Angrill and Brianne Whitty, to the Meriton Lions blind bowling. And of course, we came out on top. And I would be remiss to mention that Councillor Stevens did get the single championship prize for his 4 strikes in a row, even though he cheated. And also, I also got to attend the opening ceremonies last night for the curling at the Golf and Country Club. It's a fantastic place, and the curling is amazing. They're doing it all week, and if you can get out there, they'd really appreciate it. Everyone watching, please go watch the curling. It's amazing that it's in our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Lindell. Counselor Williamson.
Yeah. Branch 350, Port Dalhousie Legion, having the Remembrance Day commemoration yesterday, which we all appreciate. And it would be the 99th version of that that's been held there. Well, we have the current cenotaph, the beautiful soldier standing sentinel over Port Dalhousie. And so the 100th anniversary of the unveiling of that will be on November the 24th. And I appreciate that city staff and Councillor Garcia have agreed to get a larger wreath for us to place on that cenotaph. Maybe we'll also get a new flag up there. Also, I just want to mention that, and speaking of baseball and sports, the Grantham Optimist, which has provided 4 baseball diamonds for the community on their property for 70 years. Well, not quite 70 years, but the organization, the service club, is 70 years old. They've done many great things. They've had Cubs and Scouts, they've had scholarships, they've had oratorical contests. They had a hockey league at one time that I played in, as well as softball. So congratulations to them on their 70th, and they're having a dinner on December 7th. I'm not sure if there's tickets left or not, but if anyone is interested, December 7th is their 70th anniversary dinner. So thanks to the Optimists for all that they do in our community. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councillor Williamson. We have Councillor Miller.
Yeah, sorry, just quick. I know we're on the subject of baseball. There was another championship decided, so I just wanted to say congrats to Canadian Freddie Freeman and the Los Angeles Dodgers on winning the World Series, aided by a near historical.
All right, Councillor, I think that's quite enough.
By the New York Yankees in the 5th inning of the deciding Game 5. You must have missed that one, Mayor. I just wanted to make sure we caught that.
Councillor Miller, I'm really glad you're not here tonight. That was cruel and that was unusual, and I will. CHCH reached out to me for comment, and I said, you know, I appreciate people giving my family and I some time to grieve. I will simply leave you with this. I'm looking back on the good times, and the good times included being able to watch my baseball team play actual meaningful baseball at the end of October, unlike some fans of baseball teams I may be able to mention. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, how do I follow that? But anyway, there's a few things. Sunday, October 27th, I was lucky enough to go celebrate the 15th anniversary of the Christian Center on Facer Street and the 9th year for Pastor K.R. Davidson and his wife Gail, who are moving on to other venues. Also, the 26th was the tree, I believe it was the 26th, I'm gonna get my dates wrong, the tree giveaway, 26th? Mr. Christie? Was that the day, 26th? Yeah. Very well attended, right near the deadline. I think we gave pretty much almost 400 trees away. It was very good, along with Councillor McPherson and staff. People are very receptive and just love getting their trees to plant in the city. So it's a fun 3 hours on a Saturday morning to go to. Also, Monday, November 4th, we did the flag raising here for World Polio Day with Rotary, and it's surprisingly that there is still pockets of polio throughout the world. It isn't eradicated yet, and the Rotary is working very diligently to help get rid of that. Also, the same day, Toolbox Niagara kicked off his annual 2024 campaign. This year, his goal is 800 bags of personal care items for men, and this year he's adding 500 for women to give out. So if anybody wants to help donate some supplies, check out Toolbox Niagara. And we went to Quest on Friday with the mayor and MP and MPPs with their Community Health and Wellbeing Month. They had a little tea there, and it was a very lovely afternoon. One more thing, where is it here? Yep. I attended the GNCC Economic Development along with staff last week at White Oaks, and very informative. And this area in here, Niagara, is actually moving ahead pretty good, and there's a lot of good stuff happening here in Niagara. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to reiterate what I mentioned to Council when you were gone, in support of what you said, I attended the Ontario Large City Mayors meeting on your behalf, and we spent all day talking about the homeless situation. And it wasn't a unanimous vote, but it was a huge consensus vote that the motion be sent to the provincial government asking for assistance. And the indication, CA Oaks was with me, many of the mayors that were present expressed identical concerns to what you expressed today. Their cities are in the same condition that we are in, and every mayor there virtually was asking for that assistance. So you're right, we have to help them, but we also have to keep our own residents in mind to make their living in St. Catharines as pleasant as possible. But the large city mayors definitely support everything you said tonight.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to share that this Thursday will be the annual Jillian's Place Wrapped in Courage Pancake Breakfast at Market Square, and encourage everybody to attend. It's in support of Women Abuse Prevention Month, and it's a pancake breakfast. For $20, you get pancakes, sausage, coffee, and a Jillian's Place purple scarf in support of Women's Abuse Prevention Month.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Councillor. Councillor Ratzlaff.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Through you, just not to belabor the point that you've brought up and Councillor Williams or Phillips brought up, but about the intolerable situation in our city with encampments, the need for housing for all. The fact that there are mayors in the province who are contemplating or have asked the Premier to use the notwithstanding clause, I think indicates that we've come to a point where change is necessary. And I won't go over the letter now, but I think it's important to point out while we're on the topic that rent control is important. Evictions, if the eviction rate, if we don't actually address the eviction rate, we're never going to actually solve the problem. Many of the things that the letter asks for is just a Band-Aid because cities can't deal with the issues, as Councillor Phillips said, on our own. And I think it's important to continue to demand the province address the root causes that have led to the situation in our cities. Doesn't matter if you're an encampment or if you're a homeowner. You're a resident and you deserve housing.
Councillor, and I appreciate your comments, and I appreciate Councillor Phillips' comments, and I agree with you. Like, ultimately, the root causes need to be addressed, and that was, I hope, the point that I was making at the beginning of my comments, that I think the point is fair, that if there's nowhere for people to go, then simply tearing down an encampment is probably not going to get you very far to a solution. What we need are more units. We need more access to mental health care. We need more access to rehabilitative care. We need more of all of these things, and it's incumbent on the province. And I think it can be frustrating sometimes to many of us to see people get bogged down in very limited arguments when there is a very real humanitarian crisis going on. So we will continue to push that message to the province. We will continue to advocate for more dollars to be spent by them through the region to get those housing units built, to get the shelter beds, at least as a temporary measure, built so that people have somewhere to go. With that, we will move on to item number 2 in the adoption of the agenda, and I will look to the clerk.
The following amendments have been made to the agenda. Item 8.2, presentation from Metis Council regarding Ontario Merit and Significance of Louis Riel Day will be moved to item 6. After item 6, consent reports, and item 14, closed session, will be moved to after item 7.1, public meeting. The following items of additional correspondence have been placed in Council's Sugar Sync folder and are generally available to the public by contacting the clerk's office. Confidential memorandum from the Deputy Clerk regarding recommended appointments to the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. At this time, Councillor Phillips is going to request that Council consider a motion not appearing on the agenda regarding non-traditional crosswalks honoring veterans per Council's procedural bylaw, section M6.4. Motions not appearing on the agenda can only be considered if Council votes unanimously in favor of considering the motion. If that motion passes, then Council will consider the motion under the motions portion of the agenda. So at this time, we have a motion, which I think is going up on the screen, that in accordance with procedural bylaw 2021-124, section M6.4, Council consider a motion not appearing on the agenda regarding non-traditional crosswalks honoring veterans. Moving it is Councillor Phillips. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor McPherson. All those in favor? Opposed? So that is carried. Didn't need it on the screen. So we will consider that under motions today. Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda as amended? Councillor Lindell, seconded by Councillor Harris. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. On to the minutes, that Council adopt the minutes of the regular Council meeting held on October 21st, 2024. Can I have a motion to adopt the minutes? Councillor Stevens, seconded by Councillor Phillips. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Declarations of interest. Are there this evening any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we will move to the consent reports. The Council approved the consent agenda, save and accept those items brought forward for discussion. I have a mover for the consent agenda. Councillor Garcia. At this time, I will look to the clerk to read the list of consent reports and call the recorded vote.
Today's consent agenda includes item 6.1, Community Recreation and Cultural Services Programs and Cultural Services Niagara Folk Arts Festival 2024 report and 2025 funding. 6.2, Financial Management Services Property Management, declare land surplus, reserve lot along Welland Canals Parkway. 6.3, Financial Management Services Billing 2025 tax due dates and interim billing bylaw. Item 6.4, Legal and Clerk Services, Office of the City Clerk. Amendment to Bylaw 2018-177 regarding First Ontario Performing Arts Center's application for charitable status. Item 6.5, Planning and Building Services, Planning Services, relocation of a designated heritage property in the Port Dalhousie Heritage Conservation District, 13 Paxton Avenue. 6.6, Planning and Building Services, Planning Services demolition permit for a designated heritage property in Port Dalhousie, 33 Bayview Drive. Item 6.7, Legal and Clerk Services, Office of the City Clerk, Council Correspondence. And item 6.8, Engineering, Facilities, and Environmental Services, Facilities and Energy Update to Zero Emission Vehicle Infrastructure Project Agreement. Councillor Garcia?
Yes.
Councillor Dodge?
Yes.
Councillor Harris?
Yes.
Councillor Kushner?
Yes.
Councillor Lindell?
Yes.
Councillor McPherson?
Yes.
Councillor Miller?
Yes.
Councillor Phillips?
Yes.
Councillor Ratzlaff?
Yes.
Councillor Stevens?
Yes.
Councillor Townsend?
Yes.
Councillor Williamson?
Yes.
Mayor Cisco?
Yes.
That's carried.
All right, our declaration to all presenters. Council chambers in all municipalities in our country represent the seat of local democracy. The many acts that govern us understand the necessity of the collective voice when decisions are being made to grow our spaces, pass our bylaws, and to seek opinions into very complex issues, ensuring safe spaces for all in our public discourse. We recognize the right of the majority to decide, the minority to be heard, the public to have an opportunity to participate, and all participants to be treated with courtesy and respect. It's imperative that elected officials, citizens, and staff have input, and it is paramount that we listen to one another and question one another, but that we understand we do this in a way that never undermines any person's ability or their dignity in our chambers. We respect the right for everyone to have an opinion and remind the audience views of the public do not always reflect those of the corporation of the City of St. Catharines. At this time, we're going to have a presentation from the Metis Council regarding Ontario merit and the significance of Louis Riel Day. So I will now call upon Derek Pont, the President of the Niagara Region Metis Council, a Charter Council of the Metis Nation of Ontario, and Councillor Robert Barber. Gentlemen, the lectern is yours. There are arrows on the left-hand side of the panel to raise it up if you would like to do that. It's snazzy, I know.
I'm on. Bonsoir. Good evening. Mayor Cisco, councilors of St. Catharines, and citizens of St. Catharines. Chappelle Derek Pont. Tonight we're going to do a brief presentation on who are the Métis in Canada and Ontario and right here in Niagara. Councillor Barber is my Vanna White of the evening, and he's going to advance the slides for me. And we'll have a few, I think we have a few minutes at the end of the presentation for questions. So in Canada, we recognize three distinct Aboriginal peoples, also known as Indigenous people today, more current term. The Métis, the First Nations, and the Inuit. That is from the Canada Constitution, Section 35, from the 1983 amendment to when we did the Constitution. So the fur trade is kind of where it all began. The Métis are known as the children that were born out of the fur trade. The fur trade, very sought after furs. I'm not going to get really deep into it. The beaver, which you see there, is what the most sought after fur were. Down here in the Niagara area, it was the great beaver hunting area, but they were probably 99% wiped out in the late 1800s. The early 1900s, Canada passed a law stopping the trapping of all beaver in Canada. That has changed today. Beavers have made the comeback. So who are the Métis? You got to keep clicking here. So we self-identify as being Métis. That's number one. We self-identify. We're distinct from other Indigenous groups. So we're not First Nations, we're not Inuit, even though we are a marriage between First Nations and European colonialists, but we are distinctly different than the other Indigenous groups. We come from an historical Métis Nation ancestry. There's many historical communities in Ontario and westward that are recognized. I am from one of these historical communities, and I am Métis. Accepted by the Métis Nation. So you have the greater Métis Nation, you have the Métis National Council, and then you have the provincial councils, Ontario's, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, and British Columbia. Each of them are their own nations. And Ontario represents myself. So who are the Métis? The term Métis is in Section 35 does not encompass all individuals with mixed Indian and European heritage. Rather, it refers to distinct people who, in addition to their mixed ancestry, develop their own customs, way of life, recognizable group identity, separate from the Indian and European forebears. Métis communities evolved and flourished prior to the entrenchment of the European control, when the influence of European settlers and politics institutes became preeminent. So they're talking, we call the effective control as well, as we refer to it. Where we live here in Niagara, this is Canada's second province. This is one of the oldest parts in in Canada or where we live here in Niagara. So the second province, going back into the 1600s. Yes, there were Métis people moving in and out of the area from that time, but we did not establish our own community prior to when this became part of Canada. So we do not claim this as an historical Métis area. We are guests on these lands, as most everybody is guests on these lands today. We recognize we are a guest, and we are keepers of the land. But when you look at the historical Métis communities in Ontario, a lot of them have very common connections. The Rainy River, Lake of the Woods area, that's a lot closer in the Kenora area. They're actually part of the Treaty 3. There was a Métis half-breed adhesion to Treaty 3, and those Métis in those areas were part of that. The Northern Lake Superior Historical Métis Community, Sault Ste. Marie Historic Métis Community was one of the largest Métis communities in Ontario. They did a lot of fighting for their lands when the Quebec Mining Company started mining in their backyard for minerals. The Métis out of Sault Ste. Marie joined with the local Indigenous First Nations and went up to the mine and shut it down. They fought for their rights. Métis have always fought for their rights, so we've most times fought alongside with our First Nation ancestors. So Sault Ste. Marie has a lot of historical community. Abitibi Inland Historical Métis Community. That's the area around Moose Factory, Fort Albany. When the Métis living in that area started hearing about the Métis in Manitoba receiving script, a lot of them were was their relatives, their family, their friends. So they began to petition Canada for script for the land that they lived on as well. They've been living there for many generations. Canada decided to draw a line on the map, Kiwantan Line, which is the English River. So English River is halfway between Kenora and Thunder Bay, Dryden to Thunder Bay. And if you live on the west side of the English River, the government will give you script for lands to the west. If you lived on the east side of the English River, the government said no script for the Métis. But the Métis kept sending petitions to Canada to fight to have their land that they lived on. Many of these historical communities lived in what we call river lot lands. Alongside the river, the Métis had about 1.5 acre strip of land, but it was very deep. And everybody had frontage to the water, because the water was our main ways of transportation, way of life, and often food. Mattawa, again, grew up near a fort in the area. The Kelowna Historical Métis Community, the Georgian Bay Historical Métis Community, Georgian Bay, Northern Lake Superior. I'll come back. I'll just touch on this. We'll get to the next slide. Sorry, Rob. A lot of them were Métis that were displaced after the War of 1812. They were what we call the Drummond Islanders. And when Drummond Island used to be a part of Canada, but after the War of 1812, Drummond Island was ceded to the States. There was a very large Métis population, and actually probably everyone that lived on Drummond Island were Métis at that time. And they were given a choice, join and become a United States citizen or leave. Most left. And they appeared in the Georgian Bay, Killarney, Northern Superior area. That's how those Métis all got spread out. But our connections back and forth to the west, we're always going west and going back and forth, visiting our families. And some our Métis moved and stayed there. Some came back, and so our relatives are scattered across Canada. Métis culture. The flag predates the Canadian flag by 150 years. First seen at the Battle of Seven Oaks. When that battle occurred, the Métis appeared flying the Métis flag. It symbolized both the dawn and destiny of a new Aboriginal group, arising from the coming together of two distinct cultures, European and First Nation. Like the unbroken circles arrayed upon the flag, the Métis people will endure forever. And we fly this flag proudly. Blue Riel Day is coming up on November 16th. I always get my dates because I got Remembrance Day ceremonies attending as well. When we do lay wreaths for our Métis veterans at cenotabs throughout Niagara. Next slide, Rob. So culture, so mix of First Nation European cultures. Michif, the language of Michif is a mixed language that is not exactly one. If you think of French, many different dialects of French throughout the world, well, with Michif is the same. So the Métis living closer to the Quebec border, and that would have been around the Moose Factory area, they were more influenced by the French, so their Michif would have been some Cree, Ojibwe, and French, and a bit of English. But the further you move to the western provinces, the Michif language starts losing more French, and it starts gaining more of the Western Ojibwe and a little bit of Sioux, again, with the English, and very little bit of French remain. So there's different dialects. A Michif speaker in Ontario can still speak to a Michif speaker from Saskatchewan today. I was at a meeting earlier this year where they had the speakers together, and it took them a couple minutes, but then they were talking like they were old friends, each speaking Michif, but a different dialect. Jigging and fusing and fiddle music. Well, the Métis like to celebrate. We were hard workers, but we also like to get together and have a good time. So we would dance all night. The fiddles would play all night. We would have competition. Who can outdance the fiddles? And the fiddles always wanted to out-fiddle, fiddle the jiggers, and we would have rendezvous. And we still do have rendezvous. Fort William, Ontario was one of the largest places where the people would come together for the Métis rendezvous historically. But locally, we're starting to have rendezvous throughout our area. Our Métis people meet on a regular basis now. Our sash, symbol of Métis heritage for more than 300 years, originated during the fur trade period, based on First Nation figure weaving techniques of European design and raw materials. The sash is shared by many cultures, Eastern Woodlands, French Canadian, Acadian, and Métis. I wear a sash tonight. Different colors. This is what we call our regional sash. In our area, there are 5 councils in Southern Ontario, and each of our councils got together and we chose a pattern. So when we attend meetings throughout Ontario or across Canada, they now recognize the sash that I'm wearing tonight as we still call it Region 9, but it is our regional sash. And I wear it tonight with pride. The culture, beadwork. The Métis were famous for their floor beadwork. Beadwork traditionally were done by Métis women, while their husbands were off trapping, working. The fur trade, when you worked in the fur trade, sometimes it was more than being a trapper. The forts demanded, firewood, they needed food. There was many jobs that came out of the actual fur trade, all sub-jobs, the voyageurs transporting goods. But the beadwork was done to show our distinctness because we quickly learned that if we wore cloth clothing in the bush, it became ripped up very easily. So we started beginning to wear leather clothing similar to what the First Nation. And then we were becoming, starting to look more like them. And the priests at the time really encouraged our mothers to start the beadwork on our clothing to distinguish us from our First Nation ancestors, so we were different. And we still work them. And today now, not just women do the beadwork. A lot of men, our youth are beading. I've attended many meetings on the nation, and you would see our youth council, many of them sitting there doing beadwork. It's not that they're not listening, but the beadwork, it helps you focus in. Your mind is doing this, and you can focus in with the meeting, and it keeps your mind from wandering off, thinking about anything else that you might be thinking about. So it is very thing. The beadwork I'm wearing tonight, actually, I did myself. I'm working on different projects. I have gifted projects to people, and that's part of our way of life. If I make something that I think is very special, well, I'm going to gift that to somebody that they may say they really like it. So I'm going to give that away because it's special for them. And that's how we are. We help each other. More than beadwork, the flower people, we had embroidery work. quill work, moose hair tufting. I've never tried that. Embroidery, I've given that a try. It's tough to do, but it really adds a lot of color to what we wear. Riel. The picture shown behind Riel is the Battle of Batoche, where members of the Wolseley expedition, some from here in St. Catharines, left to go out and defeat the Métis. At that time, it was called a rebellion. We call it resistance. Today it is known as resistance, because that land that Canada came out to take away from it was not yet ceded to Canada. The negotiations were still ongoing, and it was not yet Canada when Canada came to take away the land. And the Métis, joining with the First Nations that lived in the area, fought a battle. The Métis lost the Battle of Batoche. Next slide. So most councillors recognize the statue in front of us, the Private Watson statue, the plaques on it, memorizing, I think one of them was about the Wolseley expedition, but it talks about how Private Watson had lost his life in the Battle of Batoche. Mayor Simcoe very graciously came and did an apology to the Indigenous community. He apologized to the Métis at our harvest dinner on September 29th. We were very thankful for that, because that is a part of our path to reconciliation. We have to have truth. That statue represented, it was not against Private Watson, but it was the defeat against the Métis that it represented, which kind of made people at the time not very favorable to the Indigenous people living in the area. So we're on that path of reconciliation. Tonight's talk is another step along this journey. We will figure this journey out together. Where we end up, none of us know right now. But as long as we're willing to both make the commitment to work together to make lives better for everybody in Niagara, the Métis, the First Nations, all citizens, all peoples of Niagara, we should be able to walk together, help each other. I heard talk to the encampments. Yes, those people have hard times, but the city is, look, how do we help those people? There's a good heart here in St. Catharines. Métis today, the Métis National Council, I mentioned the 5 provinces that are involved in this. That was Ontario was established in 1983. I think there's more to the slide. So 1.7% of the Métis live in Canada, 83% live in Ontario and westward provinces. 62% of us live in urban areas similar to St. Catharines. In my own council, 28% of my own citizens live in St. Catharines. Approximately 20.5% of the Métis live in Ontario, over 120,000 Métis in Ontario. Métis never went away. They went into hiding for a while to survive, but they don't hide it anymore. Métis Nation Ontario established in 1993. There was other Métis groups in the area. OMA was one of them that fought for the distinct rights of the Métis people. OMA was the half-breeds and the Métis had joined together politically to fight for the rights. But in 1993, decided that the Métis needed to have their own voice separate than the other half-breeds, and that's when then we formed the Métis Nation of Ontario. I mentioned Region 9, so you see Ontario is broken up into different, we call regions. On the Region 1, which is where I talked about the Kenora area, with the Treaty 3 half-breed adhesion was in Region 1. We live down here in Region 9. So you have Region 6, 8, and 9 are non-historical Métis areas, because they are very old parts of the area, and we are guests on these lands. So Provincial Council of the Métis Nation, Provisional Council. Riel created the first Provisional Council for the Métis in Manitoba many years ago, and we still use the term provisional. Until we really reach full self-government through Constitution in Canada, we refer to ourselves as a Provisional Council. We are on that path of self-government. There's been many talks about that along the way. We keep moving the good path. We will get there. 19 elected officials. This is part of the PCMNO again. You have the MNO president. Just keep clicking here, Rob. The chair, vice chair, secretary, treasurer. There are 4 senators, 2 of which are the executive senators, 9 regional councilors, 1 to represent each of the councils, and there are 31 councils within the region. We have a youth representative, a post-secondary representative, and one of the few recognized Métis government structures in the province. There are other Métis Métis groups in Ontario, but they are not recognized by Ontario or Canada as actually being a government and recognizing and working with Canada. They are, a lot of them made up of half-breeds that do not come from historical areas. Some of them come from Quebec. I'm not going to get into discussions around Quebec. That's a long talk. Memorandums of understanding side with them, looking at the Métis structural. So our provincial council takes direction at our annual general assembly. We usually have that in August each year. And then, so the provincial council takes directions from them. Off to the one side is where a lot of other councils are. That's where our youth council is, our veterans council is, our chartered councils are, and our captains of the hunt. And we have a lot, so the PCMNO and down are all paid positions. Local councils, as my council is local, we are also a volunteer council. We are not paid positions, but we volunteer to do the good work to bring our citizens together so they learn more about where they come from, to get to know the other Métis in the area. We want our children to grow up knowing who the other Métis children are in the area. And we host family camps, family fun day, harvest dinners, many events through the years. We do receive a little bit of funding through the Early Childhood Accord with Canada for early childhood education for 0 to 12-year-old children. We can do programming there. Recently, our council received some funding from the Diocese of St. Catharines through the Indigenous Reconciliation Fund to help us do programming for our 13 to 17-year-old Métis youth. I had them out yesterday doing axe throwing and archery. They had a good time. And I think that's the last slide. So I did kind of really condense things, but we have a strong presence here in Niagara. We are one of the stronger councils in the province. A very strong group, like Councillor Barber is one of them, but we have a very strong, there's 12 members on our council that when Mayor Cisco was at a harvest dinner, we were all there, but he probably never noticed, but every single one of my councilors were working at that harvest dinner to ensure that the harvest dinner was a good experience for all that attended. I'll open up to questions. If there's any questions.
All right, seeing none, Derek, I wanted to say thank you to you and Iran for coming and making the presentation today. I know you took several hours worth of information and consolidated it down into one short presentation, and that's appreciated. I will say it's a lot to digest for council, so we may have questions filtering through my office back to you, but I want to say thank you for the work you do with the Métis Council, but also for your willingness to come and educate our council. As you said, it's a step on the path of truth and reconciliation, and this is us gaining a better understanding of the Indigenous communities that live here in St. Catharines and in the Niagara region. So I want to say thank you for coming out today.
Thank you, Mayor Cisco. I look forward to talking with you again.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for the presentation.
Thank you.
Right, can I have a motion to receive the presentation? Councillor Garcia and Councillor Lindell. So the motion is that council receive the presentation from the Métis Council regarding Ontario merit and the significance of Louis Riel Day. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Excellent. All right, moving on to public meetings in 7.1, Planning and Building Services. Planning Services City-initiated zoning bylaw amendment, bed and breakfast tandem parking. The purpose of this public meeting is to ensure that sufficient information is available for the public and council to understand the proposed city-initiated zoning bylaw amendment, bed and breakfast tandem parking, and to provide the public with an opportunity for input before council's decision. If a specified person or public body as defined in the Planning Act or the registered owner of the land does not make an oral submission at the public meeting or written submission to council prior to council making its decision, they are not entitled to appeal the decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal. If a person does not make an oral submission at the public meeting or a written submission prior to the council decision, that person may not be added as a party to the hearing of any appeals by others without the permission of the tribunal. The public meeting will proceed as follows. Staff will explain the report and staff's recommendation. Members of the public wishing to delegate were advised to register by 9 a.m. today. No one requested to speak. The deadline to submit written comments was 12 p.m. today. No written comments were received. At that time, I will ask if anyone in attendance wishes to speak. Then the public meeting will be closed, and council will be able to ask staff questions, and will consider the report recommendations. The public meeting is now open, and I will call upon Taya Devlin, the senior planner, to present.
All right. Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, staff, and everyone joining this public meeting for the zoning bylaw amendment to consider tandem parking for bed and breakfasts. The subject amendment has been brought forward as a result of council direction provided to staff on August 26th of this year. Typically, parking is required to be provided in a side-by-side orientation where each parking space has immediate access to a drive aisle or road. Tandem parking occurs when parking spaces are located one in front of the other, where not all spaces have immediate access to a drive aisle or road. The city's zoning bylaw defines both bed and breakfast and short-term rental. While both are permitted as a home-based business, there are some key differences. A bed and breakfast offers rooms or beds in a dwelling unit for short-term accommodation, with the resident present in the dwelling unit as host. Short-term rental offers an entire dwelling unit for short-term accommodation, and as such, there is no resident present in the dwelling unit. Both uses require one parking space per rental room or bedroom, but currently, tandem parking is permitted only for short-term rental. So the amendment proposes to modify the parking requirement for bed and breakfasts so that parking can be provided in tandem. There are no changes proposed to the number of spaces that would be required for the use, and it would only affect how those spaces could be arranged on the site. So if we imagine a 4-bedroom house that offers 2 bedrooms for bed and breakfast rental, a total of 3 parking spaces would need to be provided on site. Currently, these spaces would need to be provided in a side-by-side orientation. The proposed amendment would permit the spaces to be provided in tandem, resulting in additional configuration options. The proposed amendment was circulated to the appropriate departments and agencies, and notice of the public meeting was published in the St. Catharines Standard on October 4th. Materials and information regarding the proposed amendment were made available through a dedicated project website, which included an informational video which has been viewed over 60 times to date. No comments, questions, or objections have been received. The proposed amendment supports the minimization of driveway widths, limiting surface parking between a building and a right-of-way, increased opportunities for landscaping along a right-of-way, as well as improved flexibility for home-based business operators. The planning framework in Ontario functions in a hierarchy of policy documents. The policy documents from the province, region, and city official plan inform the zoning bylaw. The proposed amendment is consistent with provincial policy and conforms to and does not conflict with the regional official plan and the City of St. Catharines official plan. In conclusion, it is staff's recommendation that council approve the proposed zoning bylaw amendment to permit parking for bed and breakfast to be provided in tandem. Thank you.
All right. Are there any members in attendance who wish to speak today to this change? Chief? No? Okay. I'll ask again. Is there anybody in attendance who wishes to speak? All right. Seeing none, the public meeting is closed. Actually, no, I can't do that. Can I get a motion to close the public meeting? Harris, Lindell, all those in favor? Opposed? Now it's closed. Persons wishing to receive notice of council's decision should submit a written request to the office of the city clerk. Is there a council who would like to move the motion, move the recommendation in the report? Councillor Williamson, Councillor McPherson. Are there any questions for staff? Councillor Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a brief comment that I wanted to thank you for raising this issue because I never felt that B&Bs were an issue or we had a problem like we did with some short-term rentals. And I was approached by a number of B&B operators that wanted to use tandem parking and had used it throughout and did not have a problem. So I'll be very supportive of this.
Excellent. Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions? All right, seeing none, I will just provide a little bit of comment. I was the one who originally asked for this. I think it's just a matter of fairness. You know, if short-term rentals are able to accommodate tandem parking, I think B&Bs can as well. And ultimately, it's a business decision on behalf of the person who's running the home-based business. If they think they can properly accommodate using tandem parking, it seems fair to me that we allow them to make that choice. If it doesn't work out for them, it's going to be demonstrated by how successful they are at their B&B business. So with that, I will look to the clerk to call the roll.
Councillor Williamson?
Yes.
Councillor McPherson?
Yes.
Councillor Miller?
Yes.
Councillor Phillips? Yes. Councillor Ratzlaff? Yes. Councillor Stevens? Yes. Councillor Townsend?
Yes.
Councillor Dodge?
Yes.
Councillor Garcia?
Yes?
Councillor Harris?
Yes.
Councillor Kushner?
Yes.
Councillor Lindell?
Yes.
Mayor Cisco?
Yes.
That's carried.
All right, and because we are jumping all around and all over the place, we're now going into closed session. So I will look to the clerk to read the reasons for going into closed session.
Legal and Clerk Services, Legal Services, Ssonix status update, closed session pursuant to Municipal Act 2001, as amended by Section 239-2E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, and F, advice that's subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications for that purpose, and Legal and Clerk Services, Legal Services Annual Litigation Report for the year 2023, closed session pursuant to Municipal Act 2001, Section 239-2E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, or an F, advice that's subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications for that purpose.
Motion to go in camera, Councillor Harris, Councillor Phillips, all those in favor, opposed? Welcome back. So we've got a couple of things we need to get through here. And then we still have the discussion report. 15.1 Legal and Clerk Services, Ssonix status update. Can I have Councillor Phillips is going to move that one, and Councillor Dodge is going to second it. The council approved the staff recommendation contained in report LCS 189-2024. All those, sorry, I got to look to the clerk for this one.
Councillor Phillips? Yes. Councillor Dodge?
Yes.
Councillor Ratzlaff?
Yes.
Councillor Stevens?
Yes.
Councillor Townsend?
Yes.
Councillor Williamson?
Yes.
Councillor Garcia?
Yes.
Councillor Harris? Yes. Councillor Kushner? Yes. Councillor Lindell?
Yes.
Councillor McPherson?
Yes.
Councillor Miller?
Yes.
Mayor Cisco?
Yes.
That's carried.
All right, and 15.2, Legal and Clerk Services, Legal Services Annual Litigation Report for the year 2023. Moving is Councillor Harris, seconding it is Councillor McPherson. Although, or sorry, I'll look to the clerk.
Councillor Harris?
Oh, yes.
Councillor McPherson?
Yes.
Councillor Dodge?
Yes.
Councillor Garcia?
Yes.
Councillor Kushner?
Yes.
Councillor Lindell?
Yes.
Councillor Miller?
Yes.
Councillor Phillips?
Yes.
Councillor Ratzlaff?
Yes.
Councillor Stevens?
Yes.
Councillor Townsend?
Yes.
Councillor Williamson?
Yes.
Mayor Cisco?
Yes.
That's carried.
All right, moving on to item 9.1, Office of the Chief Administrative Officer, the Administration of Self-Cleaning Washroom Alternatives. So we have a recommendation here. I believe there may be, however, a request to change the recommendation. And in this case, it's, well, right now it is simply to receive this for information purposes, but there was a suggestion that someone wanted to make a different recommendation that we move it to thank you. So I think the recommendation was going to be that we move the self-cleaning washroom to an appropriate storage facility and that staff investigate locations for it to be moved.
Absolutely, I would like to make that motion. I think Councillor Kushner would like to second it.
Okay, there we go. So I have a mover and a seconder. That's wonderful.
Yeah,
Councillor Kushner?
yeah. The question I have, Mr. Mayor, this is a very thorough report, but we can't allow this nightmare to continue. And even storing it is a nightmare. Why is it taking so long to find a location for it? I think the recommendation should have been relocating the facility to an alternative public land, but not operate it as a self-cleaning washroom.
So, Councillor, I think that that's likely the direction that we're going to be going. But I think in this case, you know, we've had two suggestions in here. One of them might be feasible, but there are other suggestions that exist. And so removing it and placing it somewhere where it can be secured for the time being, I think, is the appropriate step. The concern with leaving it where it is at present until we identify a site is that it could be more damaged and get to a point where it's no longer usable. So this is an option for us to be able to remove it and then take our time identifying if there is a better location somewhere in the city. Because there have been a number of councillors who have expressed concerns about moving it from one place and moving it to another. And I think we have to have a deeper conversation about that before we actually make a decision on where to move it. I'm gonna ask everybody just to turn their mics off for a moment so that I can, thank you. I had it was on voting mode and you all jumped in much too quickly for me to be able to. So I'm gonna ask, can we open Councillor Kushner's mic again? Thank you. So Councillor, if you wanna continue.
Just seconding it, Mr. Mayor, but we should try and do this quickly because this just chips away at our reputation.
Councillor, I actually agree with you wholeheartedly, which is why I've asked staff for us to be able to move this as quickly as possible. I don't disagree with your point. Councillor McPherson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The public washroom has certainly been a hot topic for downtown for quite some time. I guess the one question I have is there an opportunity to, in talking to the Downtown Association and some of their members, while they are not fans of the self-cleaning washroom. They also have concerns about, the impact that it will have on their businesses. I mean, prior to the self-cleaning washroom, businesses were dealing with a lot of walk-in traffic who were clogging toilets and causing a significant amount of plumbing costs for a lot of businesses. So is there an opportunity, and it wasn't really mentioned in the report, of expanding the hours of the public washroom here at City Hall? Is that something that could be considered as part of, there's just concerns, for the people who actually do use the washroom properly, for lack of a better word, and the businesses who are going to take the hit.
So, Councillor, I would suggest that number is fairly minimal, given that right now it's not operational 75% of the time, and that's not because people aren't trying to use it properly, it's because it's closed. It's a discussion that we can have at City Hall, but I think we've identified concerns in the past, which is why the operating hours of the City Hall washroom, for instance, are limited.
Yeah.
Deputy CAO, do you want to jump in here?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. No, I was just going to bring the point that due to some security concerns that we have recently narrowed down the hours at City Hall currently. It's not to say it's not something we can't look into. I just wanted to bring that to council's attention.
Yeah, sorry, just to add, so I did a working day or morning. I'm not going to say I actually really worked at the library, but I did follow them around. And certainly one of the concerns that a lot of the library staff brought up was the use of the washrooms and the overall concern of those who are using the washroom improperly, I'll call it that, as well as that there will be a knock-on effect. I'm just concerned with some of the businesses who have in the past taken on heavy plumbing costs because of there not being a washroom. I'm not suggesting we keep it. I'm just concerned of, is there an opportunity to at least work with the Downtown Association to figure some alternatives out?
I think we can have ongoing conversations with the Downtown Association. That's not a problem, but okay. I don't know what solutions we'll be able to find, but something we can investigate.
Thank you.
Councillor Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm in support of relocating the original intent. I was in support of having this washroom. The intent was to have it as a public use for the good of the public, for anyone to be able to use it. It's a public investment. However, what we've seen is just absolute destruction of public property. So, but my question through you, Mr. Mayor, to staff is, what is the turnaround time? Because the public will be certainly upset with it just sitting in storage, especially after such a significant investment of taxpayer money.
Deputy CAO.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. Councillor Townsend, am I understanding your question is how long will it take it to move it from its current site, or how long will it be in storage?
My apology. To move it from its current site, but what is the anticipated time would be sitting in storage before we actually find an appropriate location? I know in the staff report there were 2 locations recommended. I believe one was the Rotary Park, the other one was the golf course. Certainly, I would like to see some more location options, but do we have an estimated timeline and when those alternative locations would be brought forward to council?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Townsend. So in terms of removing it from its current site, we'd see that being in Q4. In terms of it being located in storage, we have put a couple of options in front of council today. What we'd like to do is take a look at it in terms of parks renewal projects, other facility master plans that are coming up, to see if there's an opportunity to reduce costs of some renewal projects we might be undertaken and use this facility as an asset. So the short answer, Councillor Townsend, I can't put a timeline on it right now, but certainly as new opportunities come forward where there's a potential cost savings by using this facility, we'll identify those.
Thank you. So from what I hear from that is hopefully it'll be in the near future as a part of some of the master plans. And I can appreciate that. to have some, idea of when we're looking to install elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Townsend, Councillor Stevens, and then Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I have a question to staff in regarding this. If we're looking to say that we are going to move it and store it, put it in storage. In the report, it says, assuming there is a city site that it can be stored. So we're going to tell staff to store it, but we don't know if there's a place to store it at this time.
So we're leaving it to staff's discretion as to where the best place is for it to be stored. And that was, when speaking to staff, that was they said, we can find somewhere, we just don't be specific so that we can figure out where the best place is.
And I guess my second thing would be, so to pick it up and move it and store it for $50,000 is a less expensive way than somehow securing it where it is so it can't be broken into and damaged anymore.
I would love to hear your suggestion as how we could secure it at the site so that it can't be broken into and damaged anymore.
Well, I don't know. I'm not a door guy or a locksmith, so I'm not really sure how to do that. So.
We've struggled with it up to this point. That's why we're proposing to move it.
Okay, I think it's better off if we found a location and only moved it once myself, but, and I see all the extra costs involved would probably, within a year or so, would make up for the relocation. So if we're moving it at $50,000 to move it and store it, and then to relocate it again at $400,000, that I guess all that $400,000's all in. That's moving it back out of storage and doing infrastructure work and stuff, right? So we're looking at about like $450,000. Yeah, I guess so. Okay.
Councillor Miller.
Thank you. Just a question. Where does something like providing public washrooms fit in terms of our strategy or our, vision for the city? I think that's what we were trying to address initially, was that sort of, I would say, decades, if not longer, of sort of dropping the ball on providing public washrooms. And COVID brought that to the fore. So, closing this one, I kind of agree. It can't go on as it is. I don't love the two location options proposed, but where are we at in terms of our responsibility to the public to provide places to go to the bathroom?
Councillor, I appreciate the question, and if staff has an answer, I'm willing to flip it to them. But from my perspective, when you ask where are we at, we're back to the drawing board. We tried something. It was contentious at the time.
I guess to clarify, I mean, less with this one and more strategically, like this was one washroom, and I don't think we ever thought this was going to solve everything. Do we have eyesight on how many public bathrooms should exist in a city of 130,000 people and how many do?
I'm definitely not qualified to answer that question. Is there anybody who can provide comment on that? Chief Upper? I asked him another random question he couldn't answer, so I figured I might as well. So just looking at staff right now, I don't think anybody has an answer at the top of mind or at the tip of their tongue, Councillor, but it might be, I think I heard the suggestion from Councillor Harris that this is something that perhaps requires a staff report, on what exactly that policy is supposed to look like and what an appropriate number of public washrooms would be.
Yeah, I agree. I know we never...
Councillor, sorry, the CAO is now chiming in, so let's see if he's got something for us.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. I was just going to suggest we don't have a magic number in terms of the number of public washrooms, but we do tie our washroom facilities to our facilities that we have, whether it's recreation, buildings, or parks. So we do provide public washrooms, whether they're our seasonal, permanent 24/7 within the facilities during their operating hours, or temporary through contracted outhouse services in parks. But other than that, we don't have any prescribed number in terms of over and above Council would be aware, during COVID, times were different. A lot of public spaces, public venues were closed, so there weren't any facilities available. So we did install porta potties in throughout the downtown, and this was another option during that period of time that was brought forward to council, from council.
Yeah, I guess my concern about this is, and I'm not, this isn't staff's problem really, because we never gave it to anyone, but you know, this is something that came up 3 years ago, and we're not really anywhere with it. And you know, and again, that's probably more of a council problem that we didn't look at it strategically, because I think Councillor McPherson's on to something that this issue is going to migrate rather than disappear just because we're closing one facility. So, you know, I know that the public library goes through the same issues with providing safe and secure and clean washrooms downtown, and is sometimes closed as well. So I guess maybe as part of this report, you know, we don't need that fulsome data or strategy or whatever it's going to be, but there's some sort of long-term strategic thinking and in there. And again, it's not just us. The federal government has buildings downtown. The provincial government does. You know, there's lots of churches and courthouses and things like that downtown as well. So maybe if we can start though to get some sort of idea of what we're supposed to be providing and what we are right now would be helpful.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Are there any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, I will look to the clerk to call the roll.
Councillor Harris.
Yes.
Councillor Kushner.
Yes.
Councillor Lindell.
Yes.
Councillor Dodge.
Yes.
Councillor Garcia.
Yes.
Councillor McPherson.
Yes.
Councillor Miller.
Yes.
Councillor Phillips.
Yes.
Councillor Ratzlaff.
Yes.
Councillor Stevens.
Yes.
Councillor Townsend.
Yes.
Councillor Williamson.
Yes.
Mayor Sisko.
Yes.
That's carried.
All right, moving on to motions. 10.1, adjustment to the 2025 Budget Standing Committee schedule. Moving the motion is Councillor Garcia, seconding is Councillor Dodge. The request is simply to move a Budget Standing Committee meeting off of Easter Monday and to April the 7th, which I think we can all agree is probably a good idea. So can I look to the clerk to call the roll?
Councillor Garcia.
Yes.
Councillor Dodge.
Yes.
Councillor Williamson.
Yes.
Councillor Townsend.
Yes.
Councillor Stevens.
Yes.
Councillor Ratzlaff.
Yes.
Councillor Phillips.
Yes.
Councillor Miller.
Yes.
Councillor McPherson.
Yes.
Councillor Lindell.
Yes.
Councillor Kushner.
Yes.
Councillor Harris.
Yes.
And Mayor Sisko.
Yes.
That's carried.
Item 10.2, the non-traditional crosswalks honoring veterans. Moving the motion is Councillor Phillips. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor McPherson. As you can see on the screen, the motion is there that staff in consultation with the community through Engage STC identify strategic locations and designs where dedicated crosswalks can be implemented honoring veterans in advance of Remembrance Day 2025. There are other requests that have come through other channels. This is dealing with this one specifically, but the others have not been lost. We just haven't captured this particular request yet. I know there's been a lot of conversation about other possibilities. So it is on the screen there. Councillor Phillips, do you wish to speak to this? Councillor McPherson?
Just briefly, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Other cities have done this, and I noticed last night on the news, I think it was Hamilton has one that they just installed. Very impressed. I think it's a great way to remember those who have secured our safety and democracies in Canada by putting down a crosswalk such as this. We talked about where it could go in the city. I thought your idea of having it cross towards City Hall, perhaps from the courthouse, I think it was, would be a great idea. And possibly if we have other ones similar to that, because in time we're going to have a civic square out there, I think that would be a good way to see an entrance to the civic square by having those things placed there. So I hope council will approve this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Harris, followed by Councillor Townsend.
No.
Then, Counselor, can you turn your microphone off because you've had it on for the last couple of minutes? Counselor Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll take Councillor Harris's time. No, I'm just kidding. I want to commend my colleagues for bringing this forward. I did see it also that the city of Chatham did this near their cenotaph, and I think it's just a great way to pay tribute to those who have sacrificed their lives for our great country. So just kudos to my colleagues for bringing this forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Seeing no other comments, I will look to the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Phillips.
Yes.
Counselor McPherson.
Yes.
Counselor Miller.
Yes.
Counselor Dodge.
Yes.
Counselor Garcia.
Yes.
Counselor Harris.
Yes.
Counselor Kushner. Yes. Counselor Lindell. Yes. Counselor
Yes.
Ratzlaff.
Yes.
Counselor Stevens.
Yes.
Counselor Townsend.
Yes.
Counselor Williamson.
Yes.
Mayor Cisco.
Yes.
And that's carried.
All right, are there any notices of motion for the next meeting? Counselor Garcia. You turned yourself off.
Sorry, I thought they were going to put it on the screen, but do you have it? No.
In my notes, it says a motion regarding formally naming the site commonly referred to as Lock 1 in Port
Yeah,
Dalhousie.
basically, Lock 1 of the Second Canal is extremely popular, very well received, and the city was ready to put up a sign of recognition to all the groups that worked on it. And unfortunately, there's different opinions about what the name should be, so staff recommended that we go through the policy to get public input into what the name should be.
Excellent. Any other notices of motion? All right, seeing none, so that'll be prepared for the next meeting. We're moving on to report requests. There are one. That staff prepare a report on the feasibility of a dog park in Seacourt Woods Park from Councillor Lindell. Any other report requests? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Committee and task force minutes to receive. Can I have a mover and a seconder to file the minutes? Councillor Stevens, Councillor Garcia. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Bylaws, that the bylaws listed on the council agenda as A to G be read a first time, considered and passed, and that they be signed and executed by the mayor and the clerk. Mover and a seconder. Councillor Williamson, Councillor Lindell. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And there being no further items, this meeting be adjourned. Who's moving it? Kushner, Stevens. We out.